Jaya Bhaktivedanta Shila Giri Goswami, Bhaktivedanta Shila Giri Goswami. Nitya Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gora Hari Bol. Nitya Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gora Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gora Om Ajnana-Timirandhasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namaha Ravi Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Talavaya Krishnaya Krishnavardhaya Talbhattaya Namo Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Param Shri Rupanu Param Rajagata Shri Guru Charanam Vande Namo-Kristaya Bhutale Rupanu Bhakti Charanam Shri Krishna Leela Katane Sadakshamodari Madhuri Neshyitam Param Varinyam Purusham Mahantam Harivam Shri Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Bhaktivedanta Jai Rup Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhakta Dasa Raghunath Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Supposed to follow you for my Shastra pronounce at the lotus feet of our spiritual masters, Nitlai Srimad Bhaktivedanta, Ayin Gosai Maharaj, Shrivadev, Nitlai Srimad Bhaktivedanta, Shri Bhakti Gosai Maharaj, Shrivadev, Tarupana Gauri, Guruvardha, and all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis present. So until yesterday, we finished. We only have like a few pages left of this chapter, chapter 7. So we'll finish these, and then like what a few days we have left, we'll continue Bhakti Tattva Vivek. So until here, we've been discussing how when Krishna, how because of Narada Rishi, he was so absorbed in the glories of the Rajvasis. So then, Krishna, he asked Uddhava, where is Narada? Because Narada Rishi was responsible for this entire pastime. If it wasn't for Narada Rishi, then Krishna would have not even heard the glories of the Rajvasis. So he was asking, where is Narada? So then Uddhava, he said, oh, Narada is very shy. Devarshi Narada. He's hiding behind somewhere and he's very fearful because he's thinking he is responsible for this entire thing. So then Krishna said, no, bring him here. I want to speak to him, Krishna said. Because we say Narada Rishi is very tricky. Sometimes, he manifests certain leelas which is impossible for others to do so, but he can do. So then, Krishna, he asked, why does Narada not come here? Who has stopped him from coming here? Because Narada Rishi, he always comes to Dwarka. He always comes there and he meets Krishna. Although he has been cursed, Narada Rishi is cursed by Daksha because Daksha, whenever he would produce many sons, like 1,000 sons, and Narada Rishi, he would take them away, he would give them Divya Gyan, transcendental knowledge, and he'd make them renunciants. Then again 1,000 people would be born to him, then again he'd make them into renunciants. So then Daksha, he became very angry at Narada. He said, Brahma, my father, has given me this task of being the Prajapati. Prajapati means the progenitor, means to create. So my father has given me this task of creating all these children, and what are you doing? You're just taking all my children away and you're turning them into mendicants. You did this not once or twice, but every time, 3-4 times you've done already. So then I curse you, Daksha, he told Narada. I curse you that you cannot stay here, you cannot stay in one place as long as it takes to milk a cow. Means you can only stay as long as it takes to milk a cow, not more than that. So Narada, she said, all right, he said. That's a curse and it's actually a blessing. So therefore, how much time does it take to milk a cow? Like a few minutes, maybe 10-15 minutes, not more than that. So he doesn't stay in any place more than 10-15 minutes. He's always going everywhere, all over the universe, glorifying his Prabhu. But when he comes to Dwaraka, then this curse of Daksha doesn't work there, in Dwaraka. There, this curse is like nullified. No use of this curse there. So therefore Krishna here is saying, why does Narada not come here as before? So Narada Rishi is always coming to Dwaraka. So Krishna is saying, why is he not here? Normally Narada Rishi always comes, he offers pranams to me. Who has stopped him from coming here? He's asking. Then Uddhava, he smiled and he replied. He said, oh Lord, his own shame and fear have prevented him from coming here. Then Krishna, who is Brahmanya Dev, means he is the beloved Lord of all the Brahmanas. No? There, Krishna is also addressed as Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanya Hitaya. So then Krishna, who favors the Brahmanas, got up and he brought Narada into the house and he spoke to him. So we should know that Narada Rishi, he knows who Krishna is. He knows who the Brajvasis are. Because when Krishna was born in Braj, then Narada, he realized that wherever Krishna is born, then Shakti, Srimati Radhika, she is also surely born there. So then Narada, he knew that Krishna was born in Gokul, so he came to Raval. And when he came to Raval, he inquired from everyone. He inquired from all the Brajavasis that has any newborn baby girl recently taken birth? So then he inquired from Vrishabhanu Maharaj. Oh Vrishabhanu, I heard that a daughter has been born to you. Is it true? Has a new child been born to you? He said. So Vrishabhanu, he didn't say anything because he didn't want others to know that Radhika had been born to him. So then he said, yes, I have a child, I have a son. So then he brought Sridham. So then Narada Rishi said, no, Sridham is already 3-4 years old. I want to see if a newborn baby has blessed your house. And he said, yes, because now he can no longer lie to Devarshi Narada. Then what did he do? He told Kirtida to bring that daughter. So then Kirtida, she brought that daughter and she covered her with a cloth. And then only for 1 second, they showed Radharani's face to Narada. And then Narada, he told Vrishabhanu Maharaj, all right, you go inside, you bring some things, like some durva grass, and bless your daughter. Because durva grass is very auspicious. You take this grass and touch it on someone's head, and all these inauspicious omens, like all these things won't work. Like nowadays, you see devotees, they're very fearful of black magic. They're always thinking like all these things, black magic can be done, tantra. But black magic is actually true. It cannot be denied. Black magic is true. It works. Black magic. It's not some superstition. It does work in black magic. Gurudev also said. Like in Assam, if you go there, this northeastern state, there everyone practices black magic. Every day it is black magic there. It is true. It's not some superstition. But still, like, if you're always chanting all these stutis, especially, then nothing can happen. But if you become like weak, then this black magic can affect you. So this durva grass, this is used to counteract black magic. Durva grass, kusha grass, all these things. It's very powerful. So therefore, Narada Rishi told Vrishabhanu Maharaj, go bring some durva grass and bless your daughter. So then Vrishabhanu, he said, all right. And then he left his daughter there in front of Narada Rishi. And then as soon as he entered inside, then Narada Rishi started offering so many stutis. Rajeshwari, Mageshwari, Kriyeshwari, all these things, Pramodakhananeshwari, Rajeshwari, Vajadipe, Shiradike, Namostute. Then Radharani, she appeared in her Kishori form. She appeared as she is an adolescent, as a teenager, 12.5 years, 13 years. Krishna is 14 years old and Radharani is 13. So this is their eternal age. So then Radharani, she appeared in that form, and then Narada Rishi, and he started experiencing all these Ashtasattvic bhavas. All these bhavas started appearing on his body. His transformations of ecstasy. Then he offered many stutis to Radharani. And then he did parikrama, and then Radharani, she told him, all right, now you go near Kusum Sarovar and you do austerities there. desire will be fulfilled. Because who is Narad Rishi ultimately? He is Naradiya Gopi. In Vrindavan, he is the Sakhi of Srimati Radhika, is Naradiya Gopi. So then he went there near Kusum Sarovar and he started doing bhajan. So that is the same Narad Rishi who is coming here to Dwaraka and who is meeting Krishna. So he knows already all the glories. Like sometimes even Narad Rishi would come to Nanda Bhavan to bless Krishna. And what did Yashoda Maya do? She would take the foot dust of Narad Rishi and she would put it on Krishna. And she would tell Narada, "Oh, kindly bless my son, that he live a long life, that he be safe in all respects." In this way. So Narad Rishi is always coming and going to Braj. He's always listening to this Harikatha of Krishna there. He's meeting all of Krishna's sakhas. He's meeting Nanda Baba, Yashoda Maya, Vishwabhanu Maharaj. So he knew also that Krishna is feeling so much separation. But there's one thing we should try to reconcile. This is Dwarkadish Krishna. So here one may think that how can Dwarkadish Krishna feel such separation? Because we hear that just as Nandanandan Krishna, Yashodanandan Krishna, he has his own eternal form in mood, Dwarkadish also has his own eternal form in mood. So then how can Dwarkadish Krishna feel all these, like experience all these moods of separation? Because this is the speciality of Prakat Leela. In Prakat Leela, we see that even though he has become the king of Dwaraka, still he's still experiencing all these bhavs. But in a Prakat, there is no such instance. In a Prakat Dwarka Dham, Krishna is happy there with his queens, daughters, sons. There he is like perfect as he is. But here in Prakat Braj, there is always this feeling of separation from the Brajavasis. So Narad Rishi, what is he doing? He is like causing Uddipan for Krishna to arise, the stimulus. No. So Uddhava is saying that Narad Rishi is not coming here because he is very shameful, very fearful. So then, so here Sanatana Goswami has given a very nice purport. Here he's saying, when Bhagavan said that Narada never has any fear from me, then Uddhava replied that shame must be restraining him from coming. So Uddhava was saying, although he is not fearful of you, you are his Prabhu, still he is very shameful. So factually great personalities, they become ashamed themselves when their intense prem undergoes a transformation. Vikara. Like sometimes when these Ashtasattvic Vikaras appear on a devotee, sometimes he tries concealing them. But even though he tries concealing them, sometimes they are automatically expressed spontaneously. Then he can no longer conceal them. And when they manifest these transformations of ecstasy, then he becomes very shameful. He says, "Oh, why did I manifest that in front of others?" Because devotees are like that, they're like concealing their prem. Because we see, like Madhavendra Puri, when Gopinath stole this pot of kheer for him, then Madhavendra Puri immediately he left that village. He didn't even want to stay there. Because he was thinking that if people come to know that Gopinath has stolen kheer for me, then people will start glorifying me. Then I will receive so much pratishtha. People will start saying, "Oh, Madhavendra Puri is such a great devotee." Then Gopinath himself became a thief for him. He got this name, Kheer Chor. So Madhavendra Puri immediately left that place. And he started walking away. He didn't want to stay there. So here, similarly, Narad Rishi also, when he's undergoing all these transformations, then he's saying, "No, how can I approach Krishna?" So then Bhagavan said, "Oh dear friend, Sri Narada, you're always intent upon pleasing me. Therefore, O best among the Rasik Bhaktas, you have greatly favored me." So Narad Rishi, you see, he's always pleasing Krishna. How? By glorifying his devotees. No. There's that Leela in Dwaraka that once Narad Rishi, in Kurukshetra actually, that once he told Satyabhama that you must give me as much gold as Krishna's weight is. Means I will place Krishna on a scale and you should place all your gold on the other side of the scale. And when the scale is balanced, means when you give me equal gold which is equal to Krishna's weight, then I'll give you Krishna back. And Satyabhama said, "Oh, all is so great about this. And all right, make Krishna sit on that scale." Krishna was sad. It's called Tula Bharam. Even now in some places, when like a child is born, they place their child on the scale and they give as much money as is equal to the weight of the child. It's practiced now in Tirupati, in South India it's practiced, not in North. So then Satyabhama, what did she do? She started removing all her jewels and she started placing it on that scale. Then she was seeing that no matter how many jewels she was placing there, still it could not equal Krishna's weight. So then Narada Rishi, he told Satyabhama that if you don't give me as much gold as I desire, then I'll take Krishna away from here. Then he'll no longer be a husband. Then he'll be my property. So Narada Rishi, then he gave this warning to Satyabhama. And Satyabhama, she told all the other queens as well that help me. He's going to take our husband away. So now all the queens also, they got all the jewels, everything. And each queen has thousands of maidservants now. So all their maidservants, they all got jewels, everything. But still, the scale was not being balanced. Krishna's weight was greater than all the jewels combined weight of the jewels. So then Satyabhama, now she was thinking, I might lose Krishna forever. Then Narada Rishi, he hinted to Satyabhama, see, all the Rajavasis have come. Go take shelter of the Rajavasis. Especially take shelter of Srimati Radhika. So then Satyabhama, she went to Srimati Radhika and she fell at her feet. And she said, oh, kindly help me, or else I might lose my husband. So then Radharani, what did she do? She took one leaf, one tulsi leaf, and she shed one tear in love for Krishna. And she put that tulsi leaf underneath her eye. And that tear connected on that tulsi leaf. She said, here, offer this, remove all those jewels, she said. Remove all those jewels, put them aside, and just put that tulsi leaf with my tear on the scale. And Satyabhama did just that. And as soon as she did that, Krishna, he went high up, and the tulsi leaf went down. So then Narada, he said, all right, now you can have your husband back. So Narada is arranging for all these dealers to happen. So Krishna is saying that, why are you so fearful now? Come in front of me. Though initially an intense anguish arises in the heart from the blazing fire of separation from the beloved devotees, an endless sadness appears from that. And because of that sadness, the heart seems even more deeply distressed. So here Krishna is saying that I was suffering so much in separation from my beloved Rajavasis. And because of that separation, my heart has become even more deeply distressed. He's saying. So here's in this Digdarshantika, Sanatana Goswami is saying, though the symptoms that manifest from devotional service to Bhagavan melt the heart and did not embarrass anyone, nevertheless I have given you great distress by baffling you. How did I benefit you? So Narada is saying, yes, I made you experience all these symptoms of ecstasy, but still, I know deep down inside your heart, you're very sad. You're very sad, suffering in separation. I know this, Narada is saying. You cannot deny it. Separation from beloved persons itself is like a scorching forest fire, and it causes great anguish inside and outside. In other words, great anguish arises due to the force of a fiery separation from beloved devotees. Now, we see whenever Krishna or the Rajavasis are feeling separation from each other, they're actually very sad. Because normally, generally, the explanation given is that even such separation is a transformation of happiness, which is true. No, like if you think about it from a general perspective, you will see that the separation is actually happiness. But still, if someone goes and tells Radharani that, oh Radhe, I know inside your heart you're very happy, but outside you're feeling so much separation, so much sadness. And what will Radharani think? She'll think, what is this person saying? This person is saying that although I'm suffering so much from Krishna and separation from Krishna, still this person is saying that I'm very happy inside and outside I'm just suffering. And Radharani starts weeping even more. So here you see, actually that separation is causing great sadness to Rajavasis. It is not, they're not happy in any way. So this is very inconceivable for us to understand. Because on one side we see that although they're suffering, they're happy. On another side we say that they're suffering, they're actually unhappy. So how to reconcile all these things? So separation from beloved persons is like that. It's like a forest fire. Yet, what is the nature of that separation, that distress? Prema Krita. That is, it manifests from divine love. In this way, if love manifested by the beloved person is deep, then the distress of that separation is also that deep. This fact is noteworthy. Means as much as you love a person, if that person goes away, then you feel as the same amount of separation, directly proportional. You feel that same amount of separation. Like we see, when the Brajavasis came to Kurukshetra, then we say the Sakhas did not come actually. The Sakhis came, the gopis, Nanda, Yashoda, but the Sakhas did not come. The Sakhas, they were staying in Madhva. Because ever since Krishna left Braj to go to Mathura, the Sakhas, they were just staying there in Madhva. So why did they not come to Kurukshetra? This is the question. Because the Sakhas, when they would be feeling separation from Krishna, then Krishna would appear as a Spurti and he would pacify the Sakhas. He would appear as a Spurti and he would play with them. He would talk with them. So the Sakhas, they were happy with those Spurtis. They were thinking that if Krishna is appearing to us in these ways, and they felt that there is no need to even go to Kurukshetra. But you see, for the gopis, even though Krishna is appearing as a Spurti, still they are not happy. They want to see him directly. They want to see him by their own eyes. Spurti is also the same as having his darshan, but they are not happy by such darshans. They want to see him direct as he is. So in this way, it is said that the more separation feels, the more person you love a person, the more separation you feel from him. So the word eva here suggests that distress is more praiseworthy in the end than the happiness of meeting. Otherwise, there is no relation to the word dukkha or sorrow essentially. So actually one experiences great happiness in the heart due to distress. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, he's telling people, general people, that don't think that such separation leads to sadness. Such separation actually is a transformation of great happiness, ecstasy. Therefore, it is not simply distressful, but rather culminates in happiness. Externally, along with this distress, one perceives humility and confusion. Yet this distress is not real. Now sometimes you see Radharani, when she is feeling so much separation from Krishna, she takes a blade of grass, she keeps it in her teeth. And she says, where is Krishna? Where is he? Can anyone kindly tell me where he is? And she starts rolling on the ground. So then Lalita is telling Radharani that whole night you were with him. Your head was on his lap. And now you're saying, where is Krishna? This is the center of Anurag. Anurag means this prem for one's beloved is experienced in newer and newer ways. Although Radharani has been with Krishna the whole night or the whole day, still because of this Anurag, she feels that she has never even seen Krishna in the first place. Like, an example is given that when Chitra Sakhi, she paints a picture of Krishna, then Radharani, she asks Chitra, who is this person? This blackish boy, I've never seen him in my entire life. And Chitra is saying, this is your beloved Shyam. This is your beloved Krishna and you've never seen him. She says, yes, I've never seen him. And then, if someone recites the name of Krishna, then Radharani, she tells Lalita, oh Lalita, these two syllables, Krishna, they have so much sweetness. When they enter my ears, I become lost in that sweetness. So then Lalita, she tells Lalita, who is this Krishna? And Lalita says, you don't know who Krishna is, he's your beloved. She says, no, I don't know who he is. And sometimes, when Radharani is near Giriraj, then Krishna is playing on his flute. He's like going on all these caves and he's playing on his flute. And Radharani, she tells Lalita, who is this person playing on his flute? Lalita says, that's the same Krishna. But still Radharani, she says, no, this is another person. So this way you see, she thinks of Krishna to be a different personality in these three instances. No, Lalita tells Radharani that all these three persons whom we think of, they're actually the same person. That person you're seeing on the picture is the same person playing the flute. He is the same person who has the name Krishna. Why are you thinking they're three different personalities? No, this is Anurag. That prem is experienced in newer and newer ways. And because of such Anurag, humility arises, confusion arises. No? Like Radharani has uttered that verse, Ai Dina Tayatar Nathahe, Mathura Natha Kadavaruksha. Elam Tat Aloga Kataram, Daitam Kim Kanomyam. Means Radharani is saying, oh Krishna, Ai Dina Tayatar Nathahe. She's saying, Krishna, you are Dina Tayatar Nath. Means your heart is always melting in compassion for those who are very lowly and fallen. So Radharani is saying, I am very lowly, I am very fallen. So why are you not showering your compassion upon me? Then Radharani says, oh, I know why you are not showering your compassion. Because you are no Mathuranath. You are no longer Braja. You are no longer Brajeshwar. Now you are Mathureshwar. Now because you have gone to Mathura, now your heart has become very hard. Hridayatab aloka kataram. He's saying that my hridaya, my heart is like breaking into many pieces. Daitam kim karomyam, Daitam brahmiti kim karomyam. Now she's saying, now what should I do now? But still you are my Dait. Means you are my beloved. So because you are my beloved, you are my Pran Bandhu, my Praneshwar, it is your responsibility to look after my life affairs. She's saying, no? Because that person whom you have surrendered on to, if you surrender to some person, that person has taken the responsibility to look after you in all ways. This is the meaning of Bandhu, relative. So she is telling Krishna that now since you are my Prananath, the Lord of my life affairs are resting within you and not within me. So kindly look after me. This is Dainya which manifests. Like Mahaprabhu, you see, when he's in the Gambhira with Sarvottamana Raya, he's always weeping in separation from Krishna. And sometimes he's trying to tear his heart out open. He's saying, Krishna is in my heart. He's trying to tear his chest open. And then Sarvottamana Raya, they catch hold of Krishna's, Mahaprabhu's hand. They say, what are you doing? Mahaprabhu, please compose yourself, contain yourself. And this way you see sometimes Mahaprabhu in separation from Krishna, he's like scratching his head against the wall. And all the joints of his body, they're becoming elongated. And sometimes he becomes like a tortoise. All his limbs, they contract in this way. So these are the symptoms of like Mahabhav, Madanakya Mahabhav. These symptoms, you see, are only manifest in Srimati Radhika, not even in any other gopi. Because Mahabhav is seen in many gopis. And there's Ruda, Adhiruda, they are also seen in Lalita and Vishaka. And Mohan is also seen. And Madanakya Mahabhav is only seen in Srimati Radhika, not in anyone else. And it is only to taste this Madanakya Mahabhav that Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So here, nevertheless, the effect of that sorrow of separation is far more praiseworthy than the happiness of meeting. Because one experiences an indescribable impression of bliss. So here Krishna is saying that although I was suffering so much, still Narada, you must know that separation is actually a transformation of ecstasy, indescribable bliss. Actually, it is said that if you combine all the miseries of this world, all the sufferings of this world, and if you compare that to the suffering the Brajavasis are experiencing, then that aggregate of all miseries and separation is like a drop. And the separation of the Brajavasis is like an ocean. And if you compare all the happiness of this world, and you compare that with the happiness of the Brajavasis feel, then again that happiness is like a drop, and the happiness of the Brajavasis is like an ocean. But still, at the same time, you see, separation is also like Kalkut wish. It's like poison for the Brajavasis. But then how is it happiness at the same time? So all these things are inconceivable. All these things are only realized in the heart. They cannot be spoken. By one sadhan bhajan, one has to realize. So though there is a sorrow of such separation, vira dukkha, nevertheless there is certainly an exhilarating moment, spurti of bliss in the end. So here, although there's so much separation, still there's a spurti. Means the Brajavasis are appearing in a spurti to Krishna and they're blessing him. This is because the effect of that distress is more praiseworthy than the bliss of union. Namely, the result of that distress gives more happiness than the happiness of union. Because sometimes when Radha and Krishna are meeting each other, when the gopis are meeting each other, then what happens? Something is lost within the heart. Because they're so happy in that meeting that sometimes they may even neglect each other's presence. The joy of that very meeting overwhelms them. And they may even lose their intimacy with each other. If the question comes, how that form of bliss is superior to the bliss of union, then Bhagavan explains this with the phrase Shako Api. In anticipation of the question, that such bliss is indescribable to a superlative degree. So here the question is, how is the separation blissful? This is the question that is arising. So how can we reconcile that separation is blissful? So that is Brahmananda, or merging into the Supreme, is inexpressible. Means some people, they want to become Brahma. Even that kind of happiness cannot be described. But Bhajanananda, or the bliss of devotional service, is even more inexpressible, as it is greater than even Brahmananda. So here, when a person is engaged in sincere bhajan, the happiness that he feels is much more greater than the happiness one may feel when merging into the effulgence of Krishna. This is called bhajanananda. But still here you see what Sanatana Goswami is saying. He's saying, yet premananda, the bliss of divine love, is indescribable to a superlative degree because it is even greater than bhajanananda. So here there are three categories: Brahmananda, Bhajanananda and Premananda. This Premananda is even more greater. Why? Because those who are experiencing this Ananda of Bhajan, this bliss of Bhajan, they may be sadhaks. No? They may be in their sadhana avastha. But those who are experiencing this Premananda, they are actually Bhavak Bhaktas. They have already achieved Bhav in their hearts. They are no longer sadhakas also. Sadhakas means what? Until one is in the stage of Ashakti, he is a sadhak. No, Nishtha, Ruchi, Ashakti. But when the stage of Bhav comes, then he is no longer a sadhak. Then he is a Bhavak Bhakta. And when he achieves Prem, he is a Premi Bhakta. So these are actually Premi Bhaktas. Raganuga Bhaktas, Siddha Bhaktas, Ragatmikas as well. Nonetheless, the vigor of the forest fire of separation from one's beloved and the sorrow and lamentation generated from that force are indescribable because they have reached their ultimate limit. Namely, that greatest happiness arises in the mature stage of the distress of separation. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, as that separation grows more and more, then it culminates. And what is the culmination of that separation? Indescribable happiness. Here again. This is the culmination of that separation. It is most difficult to describe. He's saying, I cannot describe. Although that exalted bliss arises from the distress of separation, it is not that it is unbearable, rather it is extremely charming. So normally when you feel separation from anyone in this world, then that is very painful. But here you saw Sanatana Goswami saying, that separation is actually very charming. It means it attracts one's heart. Now the question arises, how is it possible to experience such happiness in the distress of separation? In reply, he says that only Rasik Bhaktas can experience that great bliss in the distress of separation. So you see here, only Rasik Bhaktas, they will realize how that separation culminates in happiness. In other words, only the Mahajans or great souls who are greedy for Premaras can experience that bliss. No one else can perceive this. See, only the Premi Bhaktas, they can realize that happiness. No one else. The reason is that the mind becomes fully blissful when distress and affliction that arise from separation calm down. So the mind becomes completely content as if it has received the happiness of union. So here you see when the separation is raging more and more, or it's increasing more and more, then when it finally calms down, when the separation finally calms down, then the mind feels as though it has received the joy of meeting. Here there is no meeting, there is only separation. But still when the separation recedes, when it comes down, then the joy of meeting is experienced. So here we'll read this purport, because without reading the purpose you cannot understand all these things. So freed from the sorrow that arises, so if one remarks that in the deepest distress of bewilderment or death, is it indeed possible when intense grief matures, then there is a chance of bliss? So here if a person is bewildered, or if he is reaching the stage of death, how can he be happy? Because according to the logic of after distress comes happiness, and after happiness comes distress, is there even a chance of bliss after the cessation of affliction and distress arising from separation? How believable is that a moment of happiness will come at the end of distress, or in the mature stage of distress? So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, even if one reaches a drop of happiness in such separation, how can even a moment of happiness make one happy? Because happiness should be continuous. But here it has only been described that it is a moment of happiness. So how can even that moment make a devotee happy? No. This is a fact. But one's experience alone is the final proof in this matter. That is the moment of happiness in the heart in separation from the beloved, and one's experience is the proof in this matter. All the reason for that spurti is not explainable. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, yes, it is very difficult to reconcile. How can a moment of happiness just make one eternally happy? But here Sanatana Goswami is saying that this can only be experienced in one's heart. he's saying. By one's logic, one cannot understand this. Now, one can beat his brain as much as he wants. He can use all the logic in this world to understand. But Sanatana Goswami is saying, unless you experience it yourself, you cannot realize anything. Like let's say you bring a mango and you show it to one person and you say this mango is very sweet, it's very juicy. If you eat this mango, you'll feel so happy. So then that person, you can explain to that person how sweet that mango is. But unless and until that person tastes that mango, how will he realize its sweetness? No, you should put that mango in his mouth. Then when he tastes it, then he will see how juicy it is, how sweet it is. Similarly, here Sanatana Goswami is saying, I'm giving all this logic, all these different explanations, but unless a devotee realizes this in his heart, he will not understand, he will not experience. So freed from the sorrow that arises from the grief of separation, the mind that experiences separation becomes always happy and full of a sentiment opposed to unfulfillment. Means the mind becomes fulfilled. It becomes free from any shortcomings. And what is the nature of that happiness? It is intensely blissful, like the happiness of union that obtains its desired object. That is, in the absence of union in the heart, there is a sense of incompleteness, but it does not remain. Rather, the heart becomes even more blissful. So although in separation the heart feels incomplete, as the separation grows more and more, that sense of incompleteness goes away and the heart becomes complete. Then the heart feels that it has received this meeting with Krishna. It remains complete, indicating that factually such a feeling of completeness arises from the distress of separation, not due to the happiness of union. So there is a manifestation of bliss in that condition and it is believable. So Sanatana Goswami is saying that you must know that this happiness that the heart is feeling is not because of sambhog. No, normally when the devotees meet with Krishna, they become very happy. But no, it is not this kind of happiness. This kind of happiness is different from that. This kind of happiness is from separation. Because even in that separation, there is a spurti. There's an internal revelation. And because of that spurti, momentary glimpse of Krishna, one becomes very happy. Now all these things are like very difficult. But still by reading something, at least some greed can come in our hearts. So the internal meaning here is that such happiness is achievable after union with the beloved. Similarly, the cause of such happiness would be recognizable from the symptoms, such as the delight of the heart generated after lamentation. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, you can only realize this prema by its symptoms in our stage. Or else here, we do not even know the intrinsic nature of this prema. The intrinsic nature of this prema can only be realized in one's heart. But the symptoms can be explained. Means this prema causes such and such transformation. One experiences such and such bhavs. Only the symptoms can be given, but not the intrinsic nature. This is because the exuberance of the mind is impossible in the absence of extreme happiness. And there is no other cause for the manifestation of happiness in the state of separation. Therefore, it is necessary to accept that the manifestation of happiness comes from the distress of separation. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying that this happiness that we are speaking of here, this happiness that Krishna is experiencing is only because of separation from the Vrajavasis. So he's saying this. So therefore the mind, confounded by separation from the beloved, again desires that same emotion and becomes extremely unhappy if there is a lack of separation. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, although this separation is causing so much distress, but because it is giving so much happiness, the devotee wants to experience that separation again and again. He wants to experience it again and again. Like the example is given that in one village, this Ram Katha was being spoken, the Ramayana. And all the people sitting there in the audience, they were weeping so much. You know, when they were hearing about how Ram went to the forest, how then Sita was taken away from Ram, and how again Sita was sent to the forest by Ram. So when they're listening to these leelas, they're weeping so much. But still, although they're suffering so much, still you see again they want to listen to the Ramayana. Again they would come next day and again they would listen to the whole thing again. Again and again they're listening. So why are they listening again and again if they're weeping so much? This is the question. If they're weeping, if they're suffering so much, then why are they listening again and again? Means there is some happiness there. In such separation there is some happiness. No. So those who say that the subject matter of separation is not tasteful also accept that it is most beneficial because it creates a remembrance of the beloved person. So some people say separation is very bad. Like even in Vrindavan, you see, some devotees, they only like the idea of Radha and Krishna meeting with each other. They don't like this idea of Radha and Krishna being separated. They say, how is this possible? How can we imagine Radharani being separated from Krishna? No, there is only meeting between them. They're saying, how can they be separated? But here, Sanatana Goswami is saying, even such separation is very beneficial. Why? Because then one can remember that person. He can remember his qualities, his leelas, his characteristics, everything. More so than even during meeting. Like let's say Radha and Krishna are meeting. And then meeting each other, will Radharani think about Krishna's qualities so much? She'll only be absorbed in the joy of that meeting. No. She'll only be thinking, how can I, they'll only be absorbed in that joy. But when Radharani is separated from Krishna, then her remembrance of Krishna's qualities and pastimes, it increases more and more. Then she's thinking about his leelas even more. But during meeting, not so much. In this way. So here, Bhagavan, he's speaking about the distress of separation. So here an example is given. Although the heat of fire is opposite to the coolness of ice, nevertheless, the touch of a block of ice by one's limbs, such as the foot, seems like burning hot cinders. So here you see fire actually burns one. And what does ice do? Ice cools one. But still, if you keep ice on your hand long enough, then what will it do? It will start burning your hand. It will act like fire. You'll get a frostbite after that. No? So here you see, ice actually cools one. But still, if you keep ice long enough on any part of your limbs, then it starts acting like fire. It starts burning your body. Even ice then acts like fire. No? How is this possible? No? In this case, you see, cold is a fact. Similarly, the conception of distress and separation is false. One should understand that the happiness alone is real. Nevertheless, such happiness is only perceivable in the distress of separation of someone who experiences separation. That is, who is the beloved devotee of Bhagavan, not everywhere. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying only the devotees of Krishna have this mood. That in separation there is happiness. No other person can experience this. Only his Brajavasis can experience this. So though Bhagavan is speaking about the distress of separation, according to his own realization, nevertheless, his description of separation is only related to the devotees. Because separation arises constantly in the devotees only. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying, although Bhagavan is experiencing such separation, even his separation is not absolute. Because Bhagavan is Vishaya Vastu. No, he is the object of prema. He is not the abode of prema. So even that separation he is feeling is actually not complete. Rather, the separation that the devotees are feeling is complete. Because they are Ashraya Jatiya. They are the abode of prema. They love Krishna. And Krishna is the object of prema. So these sentiments are actually seen only in the devotees, not even in Krishna. However, it is understandable that this consideration is applicable only to devotees other than the gopis. Because the separation of the gopis never settles down. Even when union takes place, the sorrow manifests due to the apprehension of a future separation. So see here, even when the gopis are meeting Krishna, they're always thinking, oh, we might be separated in the future. Oh, Krishna might leave us. He has to go cowherding. He has to return back to his house. Even when they're meeting, they're feeling separation. This is here. See, these moods are so beautiful. See here, even when they're meeting, they're thinking about separation. The question arises whether the gopis ever desire the pangs of separation from Bhagavan, because they experience more sorrow than millions of blazing forest fires in their distress of separation. So here, the question is, if the gopis are feeling happiness in such separation, then do the gopis desire such separation again and again? This is the question. If they're really happy being separated from Krishna, then do they want to be separated from him? Then all right, we'll only be separated from Krishna and we'll continue being happy. If this is the question, the answer is no. The gopis don't want to experience a separation. Although we feel that it is happiness, still for them it is not actually happiness. It is actually distress. They never want to be separated from him. the gopis' distress of separation is such that it only increases due to the remembrance of Krishna. Therefore, they desire to forget Krishna. Radharani, she says, I can only be happy when I fall unconscious. Because when I remember Krishna, I cannot tolerate that separation. And when I fall unconscious, only then I am happy. Because at least then I can forget Krishna, she says. Although they do not experience distress in the forgetfulness of Krishna, nevertheless they can never forget Krishna. This is this mood. They can never forget him. All these rivers, mountains, forests, they only remind him. They remind the gopis of Nandanandan Krishna. Even when they see the impressions of his feet, they are only reminded of him. Like Nanda Baba, he would tell Uddhava, Uddhava, I would go to different places of Braj, trying to forget Krishna. But wherever I would go, I would see the footprints of Krishna. Wherever I would go. And my separation from him would only increase more and more. So here Sanatana Goswami is giving us a glimpse of the transcendental world. So here the question arises, why do they even desire this pain of separation? In reply, Krishna says that the distress of separation always arises in them with great force from experiencing the topmost bliss. This is its perfection. So here Krishna, he is saying that the gopis are feeling happiness and separation. He is saying, because he is the object of love. But the gopis, will they say this? They will never say this. They will never say that we are happy in separation. But Krishna is saying this because he doesn't realize, he doesn't know the moods of the gopis now. But the gopis, they will never say this, or that we are very happy in separation. They'll say actually we are suffering here more and more. Therefore, the fire of separation is like happiness for them. This is Krishna's explanation. In this way, the superiority of the gopis' glories, along with countless beloved devotees of Krishna, is enhanced. We have also said previously, even those who openly say that this distress of separation is never tasteful, also consider this subject most beneficial, because it reminds them of their beloved person. Even those who say separation is bad, but even this separation is beneficial for them. Why? Because remembrance of Sri Krishna is invoked. Then they have an opportunity to remember Krishna. But this is only for the sadhakas, not for the siddhas. These moods of happiness being felt in separation is only for the sadhaks. But for the siddhas, there is no happiness there. For the ragatmik brajavasis, they are only suffering more and more. Somehow or other, remembering one's beloved is like the gift of life itself for loving devotees. The same as if one forgets that person who is dearer than life is even more despicable than death. So here Krishna is telling Narada that if a devotee forgets Krishna even for one moment, then that forgetfulness is like death itself. And they say, oh, I forgot Krishna, I should have died. But here you see, for that same devotee, remembering Krishna is like giving life. Although he's like dead, still if you make him remember Krishna, then new life is instilled. Remembrance of beloved persons in every possible is understandably like the gift of life. Because forgetfulness of that person who is dearer than life is more than even death. Thus, forgetfulness of that beloved person is more serious than even death. In other words, it is better to die than to forget the beloved. Because forgetfulness of one's beloved is extremely condemnable. So although it is impossible to forget one's beloved who is as dear as one's own life, still somehow or other, if any remembrance of them comes, then it is as joyful as the gift of life itself. So here Krishna is thanking Narada. He is telling Narada Rishi that Narada, don't be shameful. Don't be ashamed of yourself. Don't be fearful. You have actually given me life, he is saying. Although you made me experience so much separation from the Brajavasis, still you must know, in that separation, I remembered them. And because of remembering them, I was like dead, had almost died. But because you made me remember the Brajavasis, you have given me life. So Krishna has been so grateful to Narada. He's saying, I'm very grateful to you that you have given me this life. It is never possible to forget a dear person who is like one's own life, just as it is impossible to forget one's own vital heirs. It is not possible to forget one's beloved. Although there is never a lack of remembrance of beloved persons, remembrance always remains present, and their special remembrance alone gives the greatest happiness. In this case, an example is given. That is, A festival is a cause for happiness. A life carried on without the joy of great festivals gives no fulfillment of bliss. Rather, life becomes a cause for lamentation. So remembrance that occurs in the matured stage of prem grants the bliss of a wonderful life. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying that as one remembers his beloved more and more, then this happiness of meeting is also nourished more and more. So, O sage among the demigods, you have greatly benefited me. I am very pleased with you. Therefore, ask for any boon you want. So, hearing this, Narada, he started glorifying. All glories to Krishna, all glories to Krishna. And he started doing kirtan of his names that were especially related to his pastimes of Braj. So, when Krishna told Narada, ask for any blessing you want, then Narada, he started glorifying Krishna. How? He started saying, all glories to Yashodanandan, all glories to Nandanandan, all glories to Gopi Kanta, Radha Kanta, all glories to Gopi Jana Manohar, Putana Mochan, all glories to this grand festival of Gokul. So see here, Narada is glorifying Krishna in front of all the Dwarkavasis. He's glorifying the Vrajavasis in front of Devaki and Vasudev, Ugrasen, Rukmini, Satyabhama. In this way. Then, the best of sages, then he began to pray for the first boon from Bhagavan. And what is the first benediction? He said, Oh Krishna, I am asking for this boon that no one may ever be satisfied by your divine mercy. So Narada is asking for this benediction that a devotee, he should never become satisfied in his service to you. Means the devotee should always feel unsatisfied, dissatisfied. No. If you ask any bhakta, if you ask any sincere devotee, are you satisfied in your seva? And he says, no, I'm not satisfied. I want to do more and more seva. No, I want to do more. So Narada Rishi, he asked for this benediction, that your devotees should never be satisfied in your loving service. This thirst to serve you should only increase more and more. Then Krishna said, Oh Narada, so what type of boon have you asked for? Everyone is familiar with the nature of my mercy, bhakti and prem. Oh best of sages, all the devotees you saw and heard of, they're all recipients of my mercy. Nevertheless, there are degrees of gradation and there are also degrees of perfection among them. So Krishna is telling Narada, don't categorize all the devotees in one group. Don't think all the devotees are like each other. You must know that there are gradations of devotees. One is greater, one is lesser. No. Still, not a single devotee among them is satiable by any means. Therefore, you should ask for any other boon. So Krishna is saying, even though there is a gradation of devotees, some are greater, some are not so great, but still every devotee of mine is never satisfied in his seva. Every devotee. Any devotee of mine who is genuine, at least to a certain extent, he is never satisfied in his seva. He wants to serve me more and more. So don't ask for this boon. I have already given this boon, so you ask for another benediction. Then Narada, he prayed for two most excellent boons. And he said, O Bhagavan, you who are never satisfied, despite giving yourself to others, I appreciate all the recipients of your infinite mercy. O most munificent one, I have this one blessing to ask from you. May I go everywhere, making the whole world happy and always blissful by making them drink the nectar of your sweet holy names. From the ocean of Gokul that manifests from your indescribably divine pastimes in the dress of a cowherd boy. So here Narada is saying, please give me this benediction that I can go all over the universe glorifying you. Especially in which regard? Glorifying you as the son of Nanda and Yashoda. I want to go everywhere glorifying your pastimes here in Vrindavan, in Brajamandal. So give me this benediction. And Krishna said, all right, Tathastu, he said. You can go everywhere glorifying my Leela in Braj, especially. So then, the second benediction he asks is, may any person who faithfully describes your Braj Leela by his mouth, hears them by ear, grasps them in his heart, or even once touches your pastime places by any bodily limb, or even secondary limb, may that person obtain eternal devotional service to your lotus feet, which are decorated by the kumkum from the bosom of the gopis. So Narada is asking for the second benediction. What is that? That any person who listens to your pastimes in Braj, Any person who comes to Braj, takes the dust of this place, puts it on his head, and even if he doesn't put it on his plate, on his head, even if he's just walking on the streets of Braj, then anyhow the dust of Braj touches him, then kindly grant this benediction to such a person, he will give Krishna prema, he said. Any person who listens to your Harikatha, who speaks your Harikatha, not to speak of listening or speaking, even if he goes to one place where Harikatha is spoken, and he just has some respect. Alright, Harikatha is spoken in such a place, and he has some genuine respect. Even to such a person, he must give Krishna prema, he is saying. Kindly give me this benediction. That anyone who goes to Braj, takes the dust of this place, listens to the Leelas there, listens to your Katha, they will get prema. Then Krishna, he stretched out his lotus hand, and then he gave this benediction. He said, all right, so be it. Hearing this, Narad Muni immersed himself in an ocean of bliss, and he began to give enormous pleasure to Krishna by repeatedly dancing and singing. Thereafter, Krishna and Balaram, they gave many things to Narada to honor some Mahaprasad. While honoring this, Rukmini, she began to serve all the preparations after showing them to Devaki Mata and Rohini. Then Narada, he was fed all these things. In this way, Krishna, he applied Chandana on Narad Rishi. And then he performing Archaman for purification, he worshipped him by decorating him with various types of ornaments. Means Krishna, he garlanded Narada. He applied Chandana. Thereafter, Narada, eager to serve and please the sages who were waiting for him in Prayag, he got permission from Madhav and he went away. Blissfully singing the glories of Bhakti he had experienced while wandering to different places. Now, because previously the sages, they wanted to know, the rishis, who is the best devotee of Krishna. So Narada, he went everywhere, from Prayag to South India, Indralok, Brahmalok, Shivalok, then Kimpurusharashva, Hanuman state, then to the Pandavas, Astinapur, then to Dwarka. So now all the sages are waiting for him in Prayag, saying, who is the best recipient? All those sages, they became ecstatic after hearing the glories of devotional service from the lips of Narada. According to the advice of Narad Rishi, the sages began to worship the lotus feet of Madan Gopal with divine complete humility. So here Parikshit is telling his mother that, oh mother, you should also do bhajan daily of Gopakishore Krishna, who is enchanted by the prema of the gopis. So here Parikshit is telling his mother, you should also engage in Nama Sankirtan while desiring the service of the gopis. He's telling his mother, you should also desire to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Just as bees cannot lift Mount Sumeru with their heads, similarly I cannot describe the glories of even one gopi, Parikshit is saying. Mount Sumeru is a huge mountain. If you keep this huge mountain, can you keep this huge mountain on the head of a single bee? Is it possible? No. Similarly, Parikshit is saying, I am like that bumblebee. And the glories of the gopis are like that Mount Sumeru, like this huge mountain. How can you place a huge mountain on the head of a bee? So he's saying similarly, although I'm relishing this nectar, still I cannot describe the glories. And although my Gurudev is deeply absorbed, who is his Gurudev? Sukadeva Goswami. Although he is deeply absorbed in singing Krishna's names, still even he is unable to utter the names of the Rajagopis. So here Parikshit, you see, he is telling his mother, why didn't Sukadeva Goswami speak the name of any gopi in the Bhagavatam? Why? Because he is saying that if Sukadeva Goswami would have spoken any name of the gopis, then he would have entered into Samadhi for like so many months. And he would have not even come out of that Samadhi. The reason is that the gopis are always in this blazing fire of prema that has reached its topmost limit. Thus, in the process of glorifying the gopis, a special remembrance awakens and Gurudev becomes agitated by a mere touch of a spark of that blazing fire that is raging in the hearts of the gopis. So here Parikshit is saying that in the gopis' hearts there's this blazing, there's this very raging fire. What is the fire? The fire of prema. So even if a spark of that fire touches Sukadeva Goswami, then he will lose himself completely. Then how will he speak Harikatha to Parikshit? No. So, O mother, if you do bhajan of Krishna with the affection of and prema, as the gopis have done so, then by his mercy, you will genuinely be able to understand some of the glories of the gopis as well. So Parikshit is saying, only if you follow in the footsteps of the gopis, only if you practice bhajan as how the gopis did, then you will realize the glories of the gopis. Or else you will not realize anything. Whoever faithfully hears, chants, or somehow or other nicely accepts shelter of this supremely divine narration, in which the recipients of the essence of Krishna's mercy is ascertained, shall quickly attain that same gopi prema towards Krishna. So here Sanatana Goswami is giving this benediction. He's saying anyone who listens to this description of the gopis' love, of how the gopis are the dearmost recipients of Krishna's mercy, as spoken in this first volume of Brihad-Bhagavatamrita, surely they will achieve prema. So he is blessed everyone in this way. So in this way we finished this description of the first volume. And falling at the feet of Sanatana Goswami, we can only pray that he blesses us, that these moods may also appear in our hearts, that we relish them in our hearts, that we achieve this prema. So Sanatana Goswami Pada ki jai, Brihad-Bhagavatamrita ki jai, Rupanukarya Guru Varga ki jai, Shradule Paramurja Prabhupada ki jai, Nand Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Prabhupada, Anchakya Patara Vishnu, Vasana Jagannatha, Vishnu, So it's another Muslim saying Krishna because he is the object of the gopis. Not just the but also separation, which is experiencing the Bhakti.